He said it at the baggage claim first, then again in the parking garage, then a third time before we'd even pulled out onto the highway, and that's when I started actually counting because normal people don't say "I missed you" 3 times in 20 minutes unless something underneath it is trying to get out. I want to explain the context before I explain the weirdness because on paper this shouldn't have meant anything. Cole and I had been best friends since we were 19, thrown into the same dorm room by a random housing algorithm that somehow got it exactly right. 8 years of friendship. 8 years of him being the straight guy in my life who never made it weird that I wasn't, who defended me to his family before I even asked him to, who once got into an actual fistfight outside a bar because some guy called me a slur and Cole didn't think, he just swung. He'd had girlfriends the whole time I'd known him, a steady rotation of them, currently a woman named Jenna he'd been with for almost 2 years. I'd had less. A string of guys who didn't stick, a couple of situationships that fizzled and Cole through all of it, constant, unbothered, the one person who never made my sexuality feel like a topic that needed managing. 8 months before the story starts, Cole took a job 3 states away. Good opportunity, more money, a whole new city. I drove him to the airport myself, hugged him in that stiff, back-patting way straight guys hug and told him not to become one of those people who forgets his friends the second he's somewhere new. He laughed and said, "Never happening, man," and then mostly for a while it kind of did, not out of malice, just distance doing what distance does. Texts got shorter. Calls got rarer. I told myself that was normal and tried not to feel the specific ache of it, the one I never let myself examine too closely, because examining it meant admitting there'd always been a second, quieter reason I never dated anyone seriously in 8 years. And that reason had a name, and the name was sitting in my passenger seat right now saying, "I missed you," for the fourth time before we'd even hit the first traffic light. "You've said that already," I told him, half joking, eyes on the road. "Like a lot, are you good? Can't a guy miss his best friend?" But he said it too fast and he was looking out the window instead of at me, and something about the set of his jaw made me glance over twice at a red light. "Sure," I said slowly, "it's just you usually don't say it, you usually just show up and start roasting my apartment for being messy. This is new." "Maybe I'm capable of growth," he said and smiled, but it didn't fully reach his eyes, and I let it go because we were still 40 minutes from my place, and the silence in the car had this strange electric hum underneath it that I didn't have a name for yet. He was in town for Marcus's wedding, Marcus being a mutual friend from college, the kind of guy whose wedding functions as a reunion whether you want it to or not. Cole was staying 5 days. He was supposed to split his time between his parents' place and mine, the way he always did, but somewhere between the airport and my apartment building he mentioned, almost too casually, that he'd probably just crash at my place the whole trip if that was cool. "What about your mom? She's gonna kill you," I said. "She hasn't seen you in 8 months." "I'll see her plenty, he shrugged, staring at his hands. "I want to actually hang out with you this week, not like 45 minutes at Sunday dinner with my whole extended family asking why I'm still single." That last part snagged on something in me. Still single, what happened to Jenna? He didn't answer right away. He was looking out the window at nothing in particular, at the same gas station we'd driven past 100 times in college, and when he finally spoke his voice had gone quieter, more careful. "We're kind of on a break," he said. "It's complicated." I wanted to ask more. I didn't because we were pulling into my building's parking lot and he was already unbuckling, already changing the subject to something about a U-Haul truck blocking the good spot, and I filed it away the way you file away a lot of things when you're used to not asking your straight best friend too many questions about his love life, out of some old habit of keeping a respectful distance from a door you were never sure you were allowed to open. The first 2 days were almost normal. We got drinks with Marcus and the old crew, did the thing where everyone catches each other up on jobs and exes and who's gained or lost weight in ways nobody says out loud. Cole was funny loud himself mostly, but I kept catching him watching me across the table in a way that made me lose my train of thought mid-sentence, not starring exactly, just this steady, quiet attention like he was cataloging something. The third night was when it actually cracked open. We were at my apartment late, a couple beers in, the TV on for background noise neither of us was watching. I mentioned offhand that I'd been talking to a guy from the gym. Nothing serious, just a couple dates, but I mentioned it the way you mention things to your best friend, expecting nothing more than a nice, tell me more or maybe a joke about my taste in men. Cole went very still. "Oh," he said, "cool, what's his deal?" "I don't know yet, he's nice, works in finance, kind of boring honestly, but—" "You seem happy about it," Cole said, and there was something clipped in his voice that I'd never heard directed at me before, something almost like the tone people use when they're trying really hard not to sound a certain way and failing. I mean, it's 3 dates, Cole. I'm not planning a wedding. I laughed, but he didn't laugh with me, and when I looked over, he'd set his beer down on the coffee table hard enough that it made a sound. Sorry, he said immediately, like he'd caught himself doing something. Long week, I don't know why that came out weird. You've been kind of weird since the airport, I said, and I hadn't planned to say it. It just came out blunt, the way things do at 11 p.m. after 2 beers with someone who knows you too well to lie to comfortably. The missing me thing, the staying at my place thing, the break with Jenna you won't talk about. What's actually going on with you? He didn't answer for a long time. Long enough that I thought he might just get up and go to bed and we'd pretend this conversation hadn't happened. The way we'd both silently agreed to pretend certain things hadn't happened over the years, a hug that lasted a beat too long once freshman year, after his dad's funeral that neither of us ever mentioned again. A night after his last big breakup where he'd cried on my shoulder and said, half drunk, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself, and I'd never asked him what this meant. Jenna and I broke up for real, he said finally. Not a break, I ended it like 3 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know how to explain why, he said, and his voice cracked slightly on the last word, just barely, but I heard it. I kept trying to write it out in a text and delete it. It sounds insane out loud. Try me. He rubbed both hands over his face, the way he used to do before exams, before hard conversations, and when he finally looked at me, his eyes were wet in a way that made my chest hurt before he even said anything. I ended it because I was lying in bed next to her and I was thinking about you, he said. Not like in a friendly way, I mean I was lying there next to a woman I've been with for 2 years and my brain was somewhere else entirely, and it wasn't the first time and I couldn't keep doing that to her. It wasn't fair. I didn't say anything. I don't think I could have. My whole body had gone very still, the way you go still when you're afraid that moving will make something disappear. I told myself moving away would fix it, he went on, faster now, like once the dam broke he couldn't stop the water. I thought new city, new job, new distance, whatever this is will fade, and for like a month it kind of did, and then it didn't, it got worse. I'd be at work and something dumb would happen and my first instinct was always, I gotta tell Thea. And then I'd remember I couldn't just walk down the hall and tell you, I had to text, and texting wasn't the same, and I started hating my life a little if I'm honest, in this specific way that I couldn't explain to anyone, because how do you tell people you moved 3 states away and you're homesick for a person instead of a place? Cold. I'm not saying this to freak you out, he said quickly, holding up a hand like he could stop the conversation from going somewhere he wasn't ready for. I don't even know what I'm saying, I don't have a category for this. I've never once in my life looked at another guy and felt anything. I swear to you, it's not a general thing, it's not some awakening, it's just you and I don't know what to do with that, and I've been sitting on it for months. And then I got on the plane to come see you and all I could think the entire flight was I get to see him. And it felt like the first genuinely good thing I'd felt in weeks, and that scared the hell out of me. The apartment was very quiet. Somewhere outside a car alarm went off and stopped. I realized I'd been holding my breath. You've never said anything, I said, quiet, careful, like I was handling something breakable. 8 years, Cole, you never. Because I didn't know what it was for a long time. I thought it was just, I don't know, best friend stuff turned up too loud. And then I thought if I said something and I was wrong about it, I'd lose you completely, and losing you completely felt like the worst possible outcome of anything, worse than staying confused forever. He looked at me, really looked, in a way he hadn't let himself since the airport. And now I'm here, saying it badly at 11 p.m. after breaking up with someone I actually cared about, and you've got a guy from the gym you're excited about, and I think I might have just ruined the best friendship of my entire life by opening my mouth. You haven't ruined anything, I said, though my voice didn't sound entirely steady either. I need a second, this is not what I thought tonight was. Yeah, he looked down at his hands. Me neither, honestly. I had a whole different speech planned and none of it came out right. That admission that he'd planned something, rehearsed it, probably in some hotel room or car alone, made this feel even more real than the confession itself. I got up, walked to the kitchen for no reason other than needing 3 seconds where he couldn't watch my face, and stood there with my hands braced on the counter, trying to catch up to what had just happened. Say it again, I said when I came back, standing instead of sitting, needing the distance for a second. Not the whole speech, just what do you actually want, not what scares you, what do you want? He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke it was slower this time, more deliberate, like he was choosing each word with actual care instead of letting panic drive. "I want to stop pretending I don't think about you when you're not around," he said. "I want to stop rehearsing what a text should sound like so it doesn't seem weird. I want," he stopped, huffed out something between a laugh and a breath. "I want to kiss you and find out if I'm wrong about this, because if I'm wrong, at least I'll finally know, and if I'm right, I don't know what happens after that, but I want to find out instead of going back to another city and lying awake thinking about a version of tonight where I said nothing at all." I didn't answer with words. I crossed the room and he stood up to meet me halfway, and there was this terrible electric pause right before it happened where I genuinely didn't know which one of us was more scared. And then he kissed me, clumsy, one hand landing wrong on my shoulder before sliding to somewhere better. Both of us slightly off balance, nothing like the movies, everything like an actual first kiss between two people who'd spent 8 years carefully not doing this. He pulled back first, breathing like he'd run somewhere, staring at me like he was waiting for a verdict. "Okay," he said, quiet almost to himself. "Okay, that wasn't nothing." "No," I agreed, "that was not nothing." He laughed, this shaky, relieved sound, and dropped his forehead against mine, and we stood there in my kitchen at close to midnight not saying anything for a long minute, just breathing the same air, letting 8 years of almost land finally land somewhere solid. I won't pretend the days after were simple. He flew back to his new city 48 hours later because his job was there and mine was here, and we spent the drive to the airport mostly quiet, holding hands over the console in a way that felt both completely natural and completely unfamiliar. At the gate he hugged me the way he used to, except this time he didn't let go after 2 seconds, and this time when he said, "I miss you already," it didn't sound strange anymore. It sounded like the truest sentence he'd said all week. We didn't have it figured out. He still didn't have a word he was comfortable using for himself, still stumbled over pronouns in his own head some days, still called me at midnight some weeks just to talk through the confusion out loud, half apologizing for not having language for what he felt, and I told him every time that he didn't owe me language. He just owed me honesty, and he'd laugh that same shaky laugh and say, "Yeah, okay, I can be honest." 6 months later he transferred back, not for a job, he told his boss the truth. More or less that there was a person back home he wasn't willing to keep missing on a screen, and somehow that was enough of a reason for someone to approve a transfer, or maybe he just made it happen through sheer stubbornness. I never got the full story. Either way, I picked him up from the same airport, the same baggage claim, and this time when he hugged me he didn't say, "I missed you," once or twice or 3 times. He just said, "I'm not leaving again," right into my shoulder, quiet enough that I almost missed it. And I stood there in the middle of a crowded terminal holding on to my best friend of 8 years who had become something else entirely, thinking that some sentences take a lifetime to say correctly, and this one finally had landed exactly where it was supposed to.